All right, let's try that again. Good morning. How are you guys? Good? Good? All right. Buckeye fans, you feeling good this morning? Live to fight another weekend, right? Keep going? Okay. Well, I'm glad you guys are here. We've had a great morning already. I'm excited for what we're going to look at together today. Before we get to that, I just want to say welcome back. I've had a bunch of people ask me this morning, hey, why every year do we take the Sunday after Christmas off and do the online only thing? And so if you're curious, I'll just tell you, all year long, not just our staff, but so many volunteers work so hard. You may not know this, but it takes tons and tons, hundreds of volunteers literally every weekend to do what we do here. And so one weekend a year we take off just to give everybody a breather. We have a bunch of people who travel to go visit family. It's just a chance for them to have a week with their family. And so I love that weekend because it's a great rest. We still get to gather in one sense. But, you know, I was standing in the back of the room this morning and I was just watching and listening, and it just made me so grateful, not just for the talented people on stage every weekend who lead us in worship, but for all the people in the parking lot, in the lobby, in kids ministry, disability ministry, all over this place, the cafe, people who work so hard, and we're just so blessed by them. So can we just say thank you to all our volunteers who are doing that week in and week out. Just appreciate y'all so much. So thank you for that. And welcome back this week. I'm excited to kick this series off with you. So let's start here, okay? I'm gonna check and see how mentally with it you are this morning after a week off. We're gonna put some pictures on the screen. These are pictures of well-known things from a different angle, and we'll see if you guys are as sharp as first service was, okay? So if you recognize this picture, shout it out and we'll see who gets it first. Here's the first one. What is this? Okay, I gave you a softball first, okay? Yeah, this is the Statue of Liberty. There it is, okay? So you all know that one. Let's keep going. Let's see if you know these next few. What's this? Pyramid. This is the Great Pyramid at Giza. Yeah, okay. A little easier. Let's keep going. We'll get a little harder as we go. Anybody? Yeah, okay. So this is in Chicago. This is called the Bean. It has like a formal name of some kind. I don't know what it is. It's just a bean. Anybody been there and seen this in person? Oh, wow, a lot of people. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Okay, next one. What is this? Sphinx. Yeah, it's the Sphinx from behind. I never knew it had a tail. I found that out this week. Somebody after first service told me that is the Sphinxter, so I don't know if that's true or not. But anyways, yeah, that's the Sphinx. Okay, next one. All right, what's this? Eiffel Tower. Eiffel Tower, yeah. I didn't expect so many people to know that one so fast, but yeah, I guess that one was easy. Now, last one, but extra credit if you get this one. I will be super impressed, okay? What is this? No. What is it? Let's look at the next picture. It's the back of the Mona Lisa. That one's a little tricky. Probably had to be an art history major to get that one. Here's the point, okay? Sometimes you look at something the same way for long enough, and when you see it from a different perspective, it can take you by surprise. It can be hard to recognize. You may not even recognize it at all right? Now hold that thought. Seth said this earlier. Today we're starting a new series called The Way. And here's the idea behind this series. I just want to explain why we're going to do what we're going to do for the next few Sundays. What we're going to do is we're going to address what is one of the most important questions in our culture, and that is the question of identity. Who am I? What am I here for? What's my purpose? What's the meaning of life? These questions are questions that at some point every one of us has to answer in some way. And some people wrestle with these questions for their entire lives and would say they never really find the answer. Okay, so these are very important questions for us because the answers to these questions, as simple as these questions are, the answers are so profound because they have the power to shape and transform every single aspect of our lives. But yet again, we wrestle with these things so much. And the crazy thing is the answers are in black and white on the pages of the Bible. Now, what makes this so difficult is we live in a culture that tells us, hey, if you want to find your meaning, if you want to find your purpose, if you want to find your identity, you do that by following your heart. And some of you know, because you've tried that and you've learned the hard way, that sometimes our hearts cannot be trusted. Sometimes we follow our hearts and they lead us down a very dangerous, even destructive path. And so when culture tells us to follow our hearts, we found out that's not always the best way to go. It's not always a good way to go. Sometimes it's a very bad way to go about living our lives. Here's what I've found in my life. Many of you have found this out as well, because you've tried, like Seth said earlier, some of the early followers of Jesus, their identity was found in what they did. They lived in a very legalistic culture, had a very legalistic approach to religion. And what they found out was it's not about what you do. See, they learned that if you don't know who you are, you don't know what to do. And many of them tried and tried and tried to do all the right things, but it just left them feeling disconnected from God, and they couldn't really figure out how to connect with him. And then Jesus came to show us a new way. See, Jesus' approach to answering these questions of identity was a whole different perspective. They had looked at it from the same way for so long that when Jesus came and he offered them a different viewpoint, they didn't recognize it. Many of them missed it completely, but he showed up and he offered a completely different call. And that's exactly what we're gonna look at in this series. And so my hope for you over the next few weeks is that you would get a different viewpoint of two things. One, who are you? And what is your identity? Not just you, but as somebody who's created in the image of God and who matters to him, and who, what we're gonna find out today is you are invited to follow him and to be a part of his family. We want you to get a different viewpoint of who you are. The other one is we want you to have a different viewpoint of what the church is and what it means to be a part of it. And so that's my hope even today as we get into this message, is that you'll leave with a little bit different viewpoint of those things, okay? And again, this is just so important because these are questions we have to answer. We have to answer. And if you will answer them by leaning into Jesus, then what you'll find is not only will you discover your true identity, but you'll find true peace in your life. And I'll bet some of you would love to have that. So that's what we're gonna try to do today through what you're gonna find is a very simple, very practical, very foundational sermon. This is really basic stuff. If you're a note taker, you're gonna love this, okay? So I can't wait to get into this with you. We're gonna look at a few verses in Matthew chapter 4. If you have a Bible and you wanna open up to Matthew chapter 4, and if you don't have a Bible and you wanna have one, in the back of the room, we have some carts with some Bibles on them. We'd love for you to pick one up and you can just keep it, consider it yours. We want you to have one, but we're gonna look at Matthew chapter 4. We'll put it on the screen too. Let me set the stage for you, okay? Jesus in Matthew chapter 4 is right at the beginning of his ministry. He's just starting out. And on this particular day, this passage we're gonna look at, he's walking around on the shores of the Sea of Galilee, and he comes across some guys who are fishing out on a boat. And these guys are just going about their day. I don't know if you've ever had a day where you're just minding your business, doing your thing, and somebody comes along and throws a curveball at you. Maybe at work, somebody puts a last minute project in front of you and it just blows your whole weekend up. Or maybe in class, your professor drops some surprise homework on you or something. It just blows your whole day up. Now you got all this stuff to do, right? These guys are just out on a boat. And they're just minding their business. They're doing what they do. They're fishermen by trade. This is how they make their living. And then Jesus shows up, and they knew some things about him at this point, but they didn't know him. But here he comes, and he interrupts their ordinary with an extraordinary invitation. Here's what happens starting in verse 18. It says, one day as Jesus was walking along the shore of the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, also called Peter, and Andrew, throwing a net into the water, for they fished for a living. And Jesus called out to them, come follow me, and I will show you how to fish for people. At which point, by the way, time out, they all scratched their heads and went, it seems too early in the morning for him to be that drunk, right? This doesn't make any sense. They don't understand this. I'll teach you to fish for people. They think this is weird. I guarantee you they didn't understand. All right, but let's keep going. Verse 20, they left their nets at once and followed him. A little further up the shore, he saw two other brothers, James and John, sitting in a boat with their father Zebedee, repairing their nets. And he called them to come too. And they immediately followed him, leaving the boat and their father behind. Now, here's what I notice about this invitation. I noticed that their response, even though they were confused about what he said and why he said it, and they didn't know a whole lot about him, maybe some of them had heard of him, or they've been kind of following along as his reputation was building, and he'd been around, but they didn't know who he would turn out to be. And so when he shows up on the shore and he says, come and follow me, they had to be asking some major questions about who is he, what's he want, why is he asking us, can we trust this guy, or are we sure about this? But you know what jumps out at me is, despite what I'm sure they were asking and the questions that were rolling around in their heads, their response was immediate and it was complete. But here's what they didn't say. Jesus says, come follow me. And they go, hey, we're gonna need the weekend to think about it. We've got to consider some other prospects we've got. So email me, I'll get back to you on Monday. Maybe we can sit down for coffee and talk, right? Most of us would have responded that way. They just dropped their nets and went with him, which is kind of weird if we're just being honest. But that's what they did. It was immediate and it was complete. And here's the thing, okay? This is, again, what this whole message, what this whole series is about. This invitation that Jesus offers here in these verses in Matthew was not just for Peter and Andrew and James and John, but it was an invitation for every single one of us. You see, he saw these guys out in their boat. He saw them with their nets in their hand, and he looked past their profession and he saw their potential. And so he asked them to leave what they did behind and to come and to follow him. And just like that, here's what he does, okay? Ready? Jesus calls ordinary people to do extraordinary things by following and walking with him. He will call you away from what you do, and he will call you to who he wants you to be. And he wants, just like we sang a few minutes ago, he wants more for you because you are made for more than whatever life looks like without him. And I know this is true, okay? Here's what I know about Jesus. I know for a fact, he wants you to beat your addiction. But some of you need to take a step. You need to get in a supportive community with some people who will help you beat that addiction. You need to take ownership of some of your own contributions to feeding into your addiction, or you need to admit that you need help, whatever it is. Some of you you need to take a step, okay? But he wants you to beat your addiction. I know that he wants you to pass your class. He doesn't want you to set out and then fail, but some of you need to take a step. You need to get off TikTok and open a book. You need to study. Okay, but he doesn't want you to fail. He wants you to pass your class. I know that Jesus wants you to repair your marriage, but you need to take a step and not respond to your spouse out of anger, but you need to respond the best that you can. I know it's hard sometimes. You need to respond the best that you can with grace and empathy and compassion. I know that Jesus wants a lot for us. He wants you to know more of his word. He wants you to pray more. He wants you to repair friendships, and he wants you to become a spiritual leader in some area of your life. And he wants you to have more patience. I could keep going, okay, but here's the point. To do any of those things, what he really wants you to do is just lean into him and take a step. And what he'll invite you to do is to walk with him. See, the cool thing about Jesus is he doesn't just say, here's what I want you to do, go figure it out. What he says to us is, follow me, and I will show you how. Now, these are big things. All of these things are big things. I understand. These aren't things that you necessarily just fix in an afternoon. You don't come in here and sit in your seat for a few minutes and I give you a silver bullet solution. I get it. Some of these things are lifelong battles, lifelong struggles, lifelong journeys. But the cool thing is Jesus invites you on that journey with him. And every adventure with Jesus just begins with one single step. You just get out of the boat. And what he wants you to do is take a step, just a step, okay? Now today, I want to explain a little more about what that means, because here's how you could summarize this whole sermon, okay? What I want you to know today is following Jesus is not just believing in him, it's about leaving your old life behind and stepping into a new identity in him. And it's not part-time. It is just like the disciples, it's immediate and it's complete. So they left their nets, and that was symbolic of leaving their lives behind. It was everything, right? A couple of them left their dad behind. I mean, this was a big deal. They left everything behind. And just to clear up a few things for you, it's not like Jesus showed up and he said, hey guys, I want you to get out of your boat. We have a church service going on at the house on the other side of the lake. It meets on Sunday at 9 and 11. I'd love for you to be there. We have good coffee. You'll love the band. That's not what he asked them. They didn't leave their nets and become Christians. The word Christian, the title Christian, that doesn't even show up until later. It shows up in the book of Acts. The followers of Jesus, they weren't called Christians yet. And so they weren't joining that, and they didn't come join a church. In fact, the word church doesn't show up until sometime around the 6th century. It comes from a German word that's not even in the Bible. And so it wasn't like, hey, leave, come join my church. You know, you'll like what we do there. We have good kids ministry. It wasn't anything like that. There were no small groups to lead. There were no ministries to serve in, none of that stuff. He just simply said, follow me. Follow me. And they did. And they took a step. And then later, they became known as the way. Okay? They became known as the way. Now, what I want to unpack for you for just a few minutes is what's the way? It actually comes from a passage in John chapter 14. Jesus is in the upper room with his followers gathered around the dinner table. This is the night when he's going to be betrayed and arrested and put on trial and eventually led to his crucifixion a few days later. But they're in the upper room. They just finished dinner, and Jesus begins to prepare his crew for how to live without him and how to do what he has done when he's gone. Because he says, look, I'm going to be crucified. A few days after that, I'm going to come back from the dead, at which point, again, they're going, why did we get out of the boat? He's clearly nuts, right? If you were at dinner and somebody told you, I'm gonna die tomorrow, and then don't freak out though, 3 days later, I'll be back. What would you do? That's what they would have done, okay? We know because of how he talked to them that they were still piecing this together and trying to sort it out and make sense out of it. And they knew what they had seen and they knew what they had experienced, but they still didn't quite get it. And so they're trying to work it out. They're trying to process and reason through it. But when he says, I'm gonna die, then I'll be back, then I'm leaving again, and here's what I want you to do. Now they're really starting to worry, and he must have been able to read the room, because then what he starts to tell them in chapter 14 was, but don't worry, because I'm going to prepare a place for you, and one day you're gonna come and be with me in my Father's house. There's a lot of rooms. One of them's got your name on it. And then he says, and you know the way to where I'm going, at which point Thomas, who was always really confident and sure of himself, responds and he says, hold on, Jesus, we don't know the way to where you're going. We have no clue. And then Jesus kind of lays it out for them in as simple a way as I think he could have in John 14, verse 6, which says, Jesus told him, I am the way and the truth and the life, and no one can come to the Father but through me, which, let's be honest, is not a popular sermon to preach in 2015. Because we live in a world that at best wants us to say, well, Jesus is a way. He had some cool things to say. There might be some truth in there. Jesus, that's a life you can pick, but you can't say that that's the only one, right? No, Jesus does not mince words here. He does not say, I am a way. He says, I am the way. He does not say, this is my truth. This is your truth. He says, I am the truth and the life. And no one comes to the Father but through me. If you don't like this, if this is making you uncomfortable, he said it, not me. Email him. What he's trying to tell them is your identity and your purpose are not found in following your heart. It's found in following him and walking with him in your everyday life. So what's it mean to follow him? It means you trust his leadership over your life. It means when you're in a difficult place or a scary place or a confusing place and you're tempted, you have a couple of options to pick. Do I do what I want to do? Do I play it safe? Do I go my way? Or do I trust Jesus into what might seem like danger or uncomfortable scenario or whatever? Like, what do I do here, right? You trust his leadership and you believe that he wants the best for you because he loves you and you matter to him and he will not lead you wrong. It means you trust his leadership in your life. It means you align your values and your decisions and your priorities with his. It means when you make a decision, you filter it through his word and you invite his Holy Spirit in to give you wisdom. It means you involve him in that and you align your life to him, not try to align him to your life. And man, we get that one wrong a lot. It means we join his mission to make disciples. It means you don't just show up at church on Sunday morning. It means you are working to lead people to Jesus, because that's why we're here, y'all. That's what we're here to do. We are here to lead people to Jesus, to make disciples. That's what he told us to do. And that's what his followers were a movement to accomplish. It was those kinds of things, okay? It wasn't about being a church, an organization, a gathering in this place. It was a movement of people who were just walking with him. That's what they were. Now that might seem confusing or it might seem like a lot, or again, we said in the beginning, this is a different perspective, so maybe it doesn't make sense. So to try to just lay it out for you, here's how we say this here at First Christian Church. We say it this way. Church is not a building you come to or an event you attend. It's a movement of people that you choose to be a part of to help people find hope, purpose, and a place to belong. And we don't go to church, we are the church. And our church will be a growing movement of people on mission to build the kingdom, impact our city, reach all people, and lead them to Jesus. That's what we're about. If you've ever wondered, that's what we do. That's why we're here, okay? Did you feel obligated to clap right there? Because it didn't seem like you wanted to. Is this weird for some of you? You're like, I never knew this is what church was about. Well, hold on, okay? So to try to help you make sense out of this, we've created something that we just call a discipleship pathway. Think roadmap. Anybody old enough, you all remember the Rand McNally Road Atlas? Do any of you still have one? You guys are weird, all right? You need a phone, okay? Google Maps, people, is way better. All right, sorry, somebody's gonna email me and tell me that, think roadmap, all right? All right, think if you hike, any hikers? Trail guide, trail map, right? Without one, you kind of get lost out there, but you have a map, you know the markings, you know where you're going. That's the idea of a discipleship pathway. It's to help you know where you're going and what steps to take. So before I get to that, let me frame it up for you this way. Our mission as a church is really simple. It's just to lead people to be all-in disciples of Jesus. That's why we exist. It's for you and me and everybody else that we can lead to Jesus, that we want to lead them to Jesus. We want them to be all-in disciples of Jesus. But we need to have a common understanding. We need clarity around what that means. What is an all-in disciple of Jesus? So our definition for that actually comes from Matthew chapter 4, these verses we're looking at today. We define it this way. Jesus told them, come follow me and I will make you fishers of men. So we've broken that down into 3 segments. The first one is come and follow me. That's Jesus' first invitation. And so we've said the first thing an all-in disciple does is they know and they follow Jesus, but that's not all, okay? You can follow Jesus and never really go all in as a disciple of Jesus. And so there's more. So Jesus said, come follow me and I will make you. I'll make you something. I'll transform you. I'm gonna change your life. And so we said an all-in disciple is being changed by Jesus. He's working on you and he's making you into something more, because you were made for more. But it doesn't even stop there, because Jesus said, come follow me and I will make you fishers of men. In other words, I have a more important job for you to do. And so we've said an all-in disciple knows and follows Jesus and they're being changed by Jesus, but they're also committed to Jesus' mission, to the work he wants us to do. That's an all-in disciple. And our mission is to lead people to be that, to know and follow him, to be changed by him, and to commit to his mission. And so with that in mind, we said that our vision as a church is to help people find hope, purpose, and a place to belong. And I'm gonna connect all these dots for you later, but that vision props up our mission. It props up our definition of a disciple. It frames up our discipleship pathway and what it means to take steps in your faith as a part of the church, the family of God. It frames the whole thing up. Now, the strategy behind this is the simplest thing we have going. It's 3 words, okay? Win, train, send. Win, train, send. This is our strategy for how we're going to fulfill our vision and accomplish our mission. We want to win people to Jesus. We want to train them to be disciple makers, and we want to send them out on mission to go and make disciples just like Jesus told us to. That's the whole strategy, which leads us to the pathway. Now, this is important for you because if you have ever, maybe you hit a wall in your faith, maybe you want to grow, maybe you're sensing I was made for more, but I don't know what the next thing for me is. This is it right here. If you want to know why, not just why we're here and what we exist for, but how you can be a part of it, it's right here. If you want to know how to walk somebody else forward in their faith to take steps, it's right here. And it looks like this. Step 1 is explore. Some of you are doing that because you were here on Christmas Eve. You thought, this place isn't so bad. I think I'll come back on a normal Sunday. And so you're kicking the tires today. You're seeing if you like it here. You're seeing if we're weird, if we do crazy stuff, okay? There are some weird people here, I promise you. Not everybody's weird, all right? We have some weird people. We love them too, okay? We have some cat people. We have some Michigan fans. Everybody's welcome, okay? Explore, kick the tires. See if you like it here. A couple ways you can do that. One is attend, and some of you are doing that right now. You're attending a Sunday morning service. Maybe you attend an event, students, middle school, high school, maybe you attend midweek this Wednesday night at 6:30 and you get to know some other students and some leaders. But you find something, you go to it. Maybe if you're new around here, you attend the welcome party next Sunday, which is gonna happen in the cafe right after this service ends. So about 12:30 or so we'll give it a few minutes after church, but we'll be out there, we'll have food and childcare and all that stuff. Maybe you show up and you meet some people and you find a way to get involved, you attend. Hopefully what happens as you kick the tires and explore is you decide, I think I like it here. I like these people. I want to be a part of this. And by this, when I say that and when I say church, I don't mean an organization. I mean the family of God. What we ultimately want you to do is decide, I think I want to stick around. And then you join the family of God. And you do that by confessing that you need Jesus to be your Savior. By repenting of your sin. By asking him to save you and getting in the waters and being baptized. And when you do, you're not joining this church. We don't baptize people like you saw a little bit ago. You don't do that to join this church. You do that to become a part of the family of God. That's what we want for everybody, okay? And so that's it. That's step one. That's explore, attend, hopefully eventually join, all right? But then what? Then what do you do? That brings us to step two, which is connect. We want everybody to be connected. So 2 simple ways you can do this. You can connect to a serve team, which means you just find a place to contribute. It might be kids ministry or student ministry or disability ministry, or maybe you become a greeter on Sunday morning. Maybe you drive the golf cart around in the parking lot, or you work in the cafe, or you sort clothes for Common Goods, sort food for the food pantry. Maybe it's not even inside these walls. You go to Refuge of Hope one Thursday a month and serve dinner. I don't know what it is, but you find a place to serve as part of a serve team. That's one thing you can do to connect. Great way to connect to the church, because you're gonna get to know people and build relationships with people as you're contributing, and you'll have a blast with it. The other thing you can do to connect is join a small group. And I'm not gonna talk much about this because next week we're really gonna dive into this, but just 2 things I'll say. Number one, small groups are the best thing we have going here if you want to grow in your faith and build relationships. Number 2, if you hear me say we're going to talk about small groups next week and you think I can skip that one and stay home because I've heard that sermon before, show up because you haven't. Okay? We're gonna lay out a whole new vision for small groups next Sunday, a whole new thing. You have not heard this before. I really want you to be here. Bring somebody with you because we're gonna talk about what it will look like to connect in that kind of community. That is where real spiritual transformation happens here at First Christian Church. So next Sunday we'll unpack that a little more. But those are a couple examples of how you could connect. Maybe you sign up and get a mentor, somebody who's a little further down the spiritual road than you are, and they help you along the way. But we want you in a relationship with somebody. That's the point. We want you to have relational roots and connections in the church. So once you're connected, that's step 2. That brings us to the final step in the pathway, which is we want you to engage. We want you to engage. And maybe for you, that looks like taking on some leadership. Maybe instead of just being on a serve team, you lead one. Or maybe instead of just being in a small group, you lead one. Maybe you take on some other leadership in the church in some way, shape, or form. But I'll tell you this, every follower of Jesus was created to lead somehow. And you may not think you are, and you may not think you have what it takes, and you may not think you have the gifts or the ability or the time or whatever it takes. But guys, I'm telling you, I believe this with everything in me. Every follower of Jesus has the ability to lead and is called to lead somehow. And it may be that you do the other thing here, which is not just lead within the context of the church like what we do here, maybe on a Sunday or another day, but more importantly, you go and you lead somebody to Jesus. You share your faith. You just show up in their life. You're just there for them, and you encourage them, and you pray for them, and you pray that God will open a door and give you an opportunity to share your faith with that person so that maybe they'll welcome him into their life too, okay? That's it. Explore, connect, engage. Now I wanna say this, and here's a disclaimer. This is not all there is to being a disciple of Jesus, because man, we could spend weeks unpacking things like spiritual disciplines, like spending time with God every day, reading his word, praying. We could talk about things like fasting. We could talk about tithing. We could talk about studying the Bible and memorizing it. We could talk about accountability and all these other things that matter in our spiritual walk. All I'm unpacking for you this morning are the environments that we try to create here at First Christian Church to help you along the way. But the reason it's important is because, man, so many people rely on the church to lead them to grow. And look, it is an honor to me that that you are here. It's an honor to me that you like it at this church. It's an honor to get to be a part of the team that gets to lead here. But it makes me really uncomfortable if any one of you are looking at me and thinking it's my job to make sure you grow spiritually. Okay? And it makes me really uncomfortable to think that you look at anybody else on our staff, as much as I love them and appreciate them, and think that. And it makes me really uncomfortable to think that you're looking at your small group leader and thinking it's his job, it's her job, it's their job to help me grow spiritually. Here's what I believe with all my heart. Every follower of Jesus at some point has to take ownership of their faith. You have to take ownership of your faith. I have to take ownership of my faith. We lean into the Holy Spirit. And the whole point of this pathway, guys, is we want you to understand what steps you can take so that you can grow, okay? That's the whole idea. It's a thing that you can look at and you can self-assess. Here's where I am. Here's my next step. Now, we haven't just thrown you out there. We didn't want to put a pathway together and just go, here you go, good luck, figure it out, right? Sometimes self-assessing is a bad thing. Anybody ever have a headache and go to WebMD? Like you type in, I have a headache, and it's like, are these your symptoms? And you said yes, and it's like, this will be your last headache ever. You know what I mean? Sometimes self-assessing can be a good thing. Sometimes it can be a bad thing. So we're not just putting this pathway in your hand and then throwing you out there and saying good luck. We're here to help. You can email nextsteps@firstchristian.com and somebody will reply to you. They'll take you and sit down and have coffee with you. They'll meet with you. We want to walk with you through taking steps in your faith. And listen, our win as a church, if you've ever wondered, our win as a church would not be to have 10,000 people in these seats every weekend. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Some of you hate it every time I say this. I'm gonna keep saying it because I mean it. I don't care. I don't care. I hope that we grow, because if we're growing, that means we're reaching people and leading them to Jesus. But y'all, I don't care about having a big church. I don't care how many people are here on Sunday. If we have 10,000 people and none of you guys are taking steps, I'm gonna quit, because you need somebody else. Or you need a different church. Okay, that's not the win. If you ever wondered what the win is, we win as a church every time somebody says yes to Jesus, connects in service, or connects in a group. That's it. That's our win. That's what we're here for. And man, I promise you guys, from the bottom of my heart, I promise you, if it ever becomes about anything other than that, I leave. And you should too. Okay? That's not, as the body of Christ, our win is when somebody says yes to Jesus, or they take a step in their faith. That's it. So that brings me to our theme for 2025, and I want to close with this. Our theme this year as a church is all in for the way of Jesus. This year, I want us as a church to learn what it means to be these all-in disciples, to be a Matthew 4:19 kind of people who know and follow Jesus and are being changed by Jesus and are committed to his mission. I want to be the kind of people who are willing to leave our nets behind, whatever they are. And for you, it might be your fear, it might be your pride. Maybe you've got a relationship that is spiritually dragging you down and beating you up, and you need to leave that person behind, because them going with you is not working. And so you need to leave them behind. Maybe it's a comfort zone or a habit, whatever it is. I want us this year to learn to be the kind of people who, when Jesus calls us, we leave our nets behind. I'll tell you this, and maybe this is comforting for you. I hope it is. Jesus' first disciples did not have all the answers, and they didn't have it all figured out. They had problems, but you know what they did is they dropped their nets and they got out of the boat and they just took a step. And Jesus, full of grace and full of patience and full of compassion, just mess and all, looked at them and said, yeah, but keep following. And never once did he reach the point with any of them where he said, no, get lost. If you haven't figured it out by now, there's no hope for you. Okay? No, he just said, follow me. So I want us to leave our nets behind, and I want you to commit to taking a step. So 2 resources I'll point you to. One is that pathway. If you go to firstchristian.com/pathway, it's gonna pop up, it's right there. You could even click a button and see it in a PDF with this nifty little chart we put together, okay? It'll connect all the dots for you, and it will help you figure out what your next step is. That's one resource. The other is a book called Practicing the Way by John Mark Comer. I cannot recommend it to you enough if you wanna learn how to simply walk with Jesus and allow him to help you find peace and direction in your life. So a couple resources there I'll point you to, but more importantly, guys, the point is we want you to know who you are, because to go all the way back, if you don't know who you are, you don't know what to do. And I don't just want you to try to take steps in your faith to check boxes or feel better about what you're doing or what. Like if you don't figure out your identity in Jesus, then you're just getting busier, okay? You're filling your schedule with things. And so let me just remind you as we close with who you are. First of all, you are created in God's image, and he loves you. You matter to him. Your life matters to him. Your day matters to him. Your afternoon today matters to him. The choice you're gonna make tonight matters to him. You're important to him. He cares about you. When he looks at you, whatever's going on in your life, he sees somebody who has value. And he knows everything that's good about you and everything that's not good about you. He knows everything, every wise choice you've made and every mistake. And despite all of that, he still says, follow me. Come with me. And he invites you to be a part of his family. He invites you in. And that's what we want for you too. We want you to respond to that invitation, because just like the disciples in the boat, you get to choose. Do you stay in the boat or do you take a step? Every adventure with Jesus just starts with one. Just starts with one. So whatever that step is, commit to it. And my challenge to you is do it. Don't find yourself at this time next year regretting not taking a step. Decide, this year, I'm gonna go for it. I'm going all in for the way of Jesus. You will be so glad that you did. God, thank you so much for your word, and thank you for Jesus. Help us to trust you. It's not easy to get out of the boat, leave our nets behind, whatever they are. God, teach us to walk with you. Thank you for your patience with us when we just don't get it. Thank you for your grace when the step we take is unwise or harmful or foolish. And God, thank you for your compassion that welcomes us back. Thank you for being a good Father and a good God who has good plans for us. We're so grateful. And we pray this in Jesus' name.